So this is officially 50th Laurels ever. So thank you all for coming. I'm so glad you could be here for this very special historic event. And of course, can't stand up here without acknowledging Dr. Lowry for heading Laurels for all this wonderful episodes, volumes, issues of this magazine. Okay, I have a fear of microphones. This semester our theme is tenebrism, which explores the world of tone through the metaphorical lens of a style of art first introduced in 17th century Spanish painting. Encircling darkness penetrated by a solitary beam of light, the implicit contrast sparks dynamism in all areas of visual, prosaic, and poetic art. In our search for this theme, we trudged through the inherent philosophical ins and outs of tenebrism broadly applied to the realm of writing. Thus, in each chapter, we illustrate the theme of cyclical and opposing parallels through quotes that exemplify how ancient, Renaissance, and contemporary thinkers and artists illustrated tenebrism through their own writing. All right. So I am the first reader for tonight, and then the program will continue as it says in the lineup there. I will be reading Mother's Story. It is an abridged version from what you have in the final printed version. The glint of an under-cabinet task light caught her watch crystal as she chopped carrots for the pot roast. Her head turned upward in spite of her task-centered drive to finish dinner before 4:15. In spite of herself, she watched the bright, oval spot of light flit around the kitchen ceiling, the minuscule motions of her wrist animating the imaginary pixie, just like her mother used to do to entertain and bewilder her and her brother when they were young and couldn't afford the cinema. And then her mother, may she rest in peace, would make up fairy stories, punctuated by the inexplicable magic of a fairy that would dance about the ceiling when the morning light hit the kitchen window and refracted off her mother's wristwatch just so. Stories so enticing that when the specter appeared, she could almost hear a little bell voice whispering behind her ear, "Come away, come away." Abby had been lying on her stomach for 20 minutes, propped up with her chin in her left hand and a purple marker in her right. Her left arm was asleep, and the elbow was firmly imprinted with the texture of her bedroom carpet. She ran her finger along a line of neat purple writing on her beautiful masterpiece, a book with 12 pages, made of 6 folded pages of borrowed printer paper and a cover of green construction paper stapled together twice in the center. She turned the completed page, pressed it down, and began writing the next sentence. "Mom, how do you spell Carrie?" she called and waited for the half second while the sound waves flitted out her bedroom door, around a half-lit corner, down the carpeted stairs around another corner, and into the bright kitchen, which smelled like chicken pot roast. "What's that, Abby? How do you spell—" "Abby, come down. It's time to go." Reluctantly, the 9-year-old closed the book and sat up, raising herself to her knees. Little white specks played in the air before her eyes as the blood rushed to her head, and her left arm felt like it was wearing a sleeve made of sewing pins. She raised herself to a running start, flinging the book and purple marker onto her quilted comforter and grabbing up her turquoise rain jacket. "Mom," she proclaimed as she descended the stairs, using her right arm to feed her limp left hand through the jacket sleeve. "My rain jacket shrunk." Abby lifted up her arms for her mother to see. The sleeve was many inches too short, exaggerated by Abby rolling her shoulders forward to make her arms grow more. "You grew 2 inches since last winter. You probably grew in your arms as well. I guess we'll have to get a new one." "A Goodwill?" Her mother blushed and grabbed her car keys off the countertop. "No, we can get one tonight at Target on our way to pick up Strider at the vet. We need to get you some nice clothes for CCD class tomorrow. All your play clothes are getting too worn." "Oh, I didn't notice." Abby opened the back door and waited on the brink of a November downpour in the charcoal sky. Her mom checked the crock pot and grabbed her keys off the counter. Bleep, bleep. The band lights blinked and the two sprinted into the side yard driveway, Abby stopping briefly to hop over puddles in her red rain boots. It was a good 20-minute drive into town. The rain continued to fall. In the back seat, Abby stared transfixed on the video screen that ejected from the roof of the van. She had not switched out the DVD in a week, but she liked watching the current movie over and over. Without knowing it, she was committing the entire thing to permanent memory, and it was so oddly satisfying to do so. She knew the feel of the film. Every line, even those with vocabulary she did not understand, had a specific tonal sound which conjured emotions, just like music. What Abby did not know was that her mother was listening to the movie too, internalizing it and combating it as it repeated like a bad commercial on internal speakers located just behind her ear. The words were the same every time, repeated over and over. It was almost, but not quite, as painful as stepping on Legos. But she knew her daughter was enjoying it, so she let it be. There was a specific scene that caught Abby's conscious attention every time she watched the movie. It was a culmination, a fulfillment. It had the letters of her name hidden inside it, and every time she watched it, she tried to dig them out. The harder she tried, the further her efforts pushed the letters into the tangible substance of the scene, making the abstract reason for her fascination more and more difficult to name. What Abby did not know was that it was her mother's least favorite scene. She only tolerated it because she knew how much her daughter loved it. At last, Abby's knuckles tensed and she mouthed the lines. There she was, in the scene, immortalized forever until the moment passed. The children were off, flying off and away into the black night of London, illuminated in golden fairy dust. Abby frowned as the scene cut temporarily to a shot within the vacant nursery. As the distraught parents ran into the room, only moments too late, the open window yawning before them, drawing Abby back out into the starlit flight, further and further away. "Honey, mind if I turn that off? I need to focus on the road," called her mother from the driver's seat. She was lying, well, partly lying. As a child, of course, she had enjoyed similar fantasies, flying off into adventure and unknown forever. But as she'd grown up, she'd come to hold these stories of lost children not as exciting, but as terrifying. She'd lost the ability to suspend her disbelief in the imminent danger the children faced. She ceased to identify with the happy children and begun sympathizing deeply with the distraught and broken parents they left behind. Her fantasy interrupted. Abby pressed the side of her nose against the frigid window. Her breath fogged the glass, revealing a series of C-shaped smudges, which indicated that she was in the habit of leaning against the window in this way. She looked up and tried to see if there were any breaks in the clouds, to no avail. It was almost as dark as nighttime already. She was surprised by how much the light had changed while she watched the film. The scene outside the car was near apocalyptic, black rain clouds illuminated in the far distance by a deep crimson sunset. She knew the simple truth. They were driving into Mordor. "Mom, we need more light bulbs. My nightlight isn't working." "Okay, we'll get some at Target. Need anything else?" "How do you spell Carrie?" "C-A-R-R-I-E, she spelled out. "You mean Cousin Carrie, right?" They passed a car pulled off to the side of the road with emergency lights on. She crossed herself and tightened her grip on the wheel. "No, like I'm carrying something. C-A-R-R-Y. Thanks." Lightning struck in the distance as the van pulled into the Target parking lot. Inside, they would chase each other's tails for 45 minutes, Abby trying not to pass out from boredom, her mother trying to get her constantly changing 9-year-old opinion on whether or not this or that purple top was bleh and would therefore be shoved to the back of the drawer and never worn. The rain suddenly let up and the windshield wiper squeaked. They sat together in the car, the engine still on. Something held them back. The mother's hand was on the key in the ignition. The parking brake was set. She wasn't moving. "Mom, look, what's that?" A half-dozen suspicious-looking young gentlemen in oversized T-shirts and drooping pants were running between the parked cars, shouting at each other, hitting the cars with their fists as they passed. It could have been thunder Abby heard when a loud bang resounded across the slick pavement. Every fear, every imagined threat materialized in her mother's mind. Not my child, not my baby, never, never. "Abby, we're going home. I'll text your father to pick up the dog." Little Abby sat in silence. She knew better than to talk. Her mother was visibly disturbed, not scared. Parents are never scared. As they drove across a pothole, the van jolted, and the overhead television clicked on. The scene from earlier progressed where it left off. The children descended from the clouds above a tiny island, to be confronted by screaming pirates and cannonballs and homicidal pixies. The mother still feared them, but she feared the boys in the parking lot even more. Maybe that was the point. A perfect distraction from the real world outside the 6 walls of the 8-seater van. The rain stopped. Humid air stood still in the darkness, illuminated occasionally by passing vehicles and solitary headlights. The van's twin headlights gazed into the thick blackness ahead as the vehicle sped further and further away from the hick town that was just big enough for a target. Swerving along lightless, forested mountain roads further and further, the van flew into the night, fleeing the dangers behind and fearing the darkness ahead. And like the kiddie movie playing just behind the mother's ear, the darkness was comforting. It didn't make any sense, but it was good.